welcome everybody. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. My name is Greg Bomberg. I'm a program manager here with the Newchip Accelerator. Though you're quickly going to discover I'm really not the star of this show. I really am thrilled to have some brilliant guests here with me. As a global program, we're really building a diverse ecosystem and giving way to a network effect that's truly unique. Our team has long understood there are some regions outside of the United States that produce really talented entrepreneurs and bright thinkers. They simply cannot be ignored, and nor should they be. Tel Aviv and its surrounding area throughout Israel is undoubtedly one of those regions. I'm going to quickly give some super quick introductions to each of my guests here, and then I'm going to pass it off to them. Obviously, they're gonna do a better job than I am. So first, I'm really blessed to bring in Assaf Luxembourg from my personal network, actually. And Assaf might actually be one of the busiest people I know, but he's always going to make time for a quick chat and an hour-long panel if I'm lucky. So I actually had the pleasure of listening to Assaf speak in Tel Aviv when I was visiting Israel a couple of years ago. And I'm not kidding. He actually had everyone in that room ready to drop everything and be an entrepreneur by the end of it all. And so really, a great speaker. He is a former founder himself, currently a partner with Plus 972, and has built a highly successful consultancy as well that really focuses around helping global companies tap into the valuable Israeli market. So Assaf, really great to have you here. I'll give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself as well.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here. So
awesome.
Is the couple of minutes are now, or you want to present the others too?
Jump in and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll let Daniel.
So I'll do it in even less than a couple of minutes.
Good stuff.
Everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Assaf Luxembourg. I am from Israel. When I was 20 plus epsilon, I discovered what I'm passionate about in life. It was completely accidental. I had a plan of how am I going to execute that passion. It was way far from entrepreneurship. I wanted to be an ambassador. I wanted to be a diplomat for all sorts of reasons, patriotism or whatever you want to call it. And I spent my 20s gaining the right experience in order to become the best cadet ever to apply to the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And as you can see, my plan failed. So I am not an ambassador. And I had a huge career crisis when I was 30. And that's how my business was born. So long story short, I'm still fully devoted to my passion. I built a freelance consulting business. And throughout my 20s and 30s, most of what I dealt with was startups, entrepreneurship, innovation, and that ecosystem. Because I just happened to be there when Israel and the Israeli tech startup nation story exploded. So I really know the ecosystem and how the ecosystem works. I was a CEO of a startup myself at the time, an external CEO in a seed stage startup. This is a complete opera by itself. I'm a graduate of Techstars. And I'm a partner at a firm called Plus 972. We're a creative agency that is quite known in the US, actually in New York specifically, but also here in Israel. And last but not least, I mainly help entrepreneurs and startups with marketing, strategy, storytelling, how to effectively pitch themselves, persuasion skills, and things of that nature, among other things.
Love it. Yeah, no, I love it. Well, in typical entrepreneur fashion, it looks like you pivoted your career a little bit, and obviously it looks like for the best. You've got a hybrid role. You're still an ambassador a little bit, but you're obviously very immersed in the entrepreneurism as well.
Yeah, it's kind of related to the path that startups make. I mean, to the outside, it may look like you're lost because you moved from this product to that idea to this version to that business model. Dude, you're lost. But no, you're not lost. I mean, when you zoom out from those zigzags, you actually see a pattern. So maybe we can talk about that later. But yeah, that's my story, basically. I do a lot of other things. You can find out about them online, but this is the gist of it.
Love it. Well, thanks again for joining us here. And second, I've got the co-founders of 6 Degrees, Miri Berger, Aryeh Katz. 6 Degrees is part of the Newchip's January cohort, and they'll be pitching this week as well. Their team has developed some super advanced wearable technology, initially focused on helping wounded veterans, amputees, and those who suffer from other deficiencies really get back to work and just regain their lives as they knew it. So Miri, Aryeh, can you tell us just a bit about your history and really why this work is so meaningful to you?
So hi, everyone. So we are actually married, so you'll hear me doing most of the talking. No, I'm kidding. So we actually founded this startup together. This is after Aryeh got injured in the Army as a paratrooper, coming from a family of physicians and basically growing up in the hospital. I was really interested in, I've seen people going through recovery and, initial incident and everything that follows really early on. And when we met, it really stuck. And more than a decade after we met, past getting married, we also started a company. We call it like our middle child. So what we do is seeing Aryeh going through recovery with other 18 to 22-year-olds, understanding past physical recovery. There's a social recovery, which is access to digital life, communication, work, play, and others. Then it really sat with us for a while. And as he was running the innovation lab at NYU and I was doing industrial design at Pratt, then running a design consultancy section, then we decided we want to bring this product out and the solution out and really give people that lost use of their hands access back to technology, allowing them hands-free access of control of any smart device. And our backgrounds really merged into doing this. And Aryeh just told me yesterday, and he can attest that a little bit about what Assaf was talking about. When you see the Flash logo, he kind of got it wrong twice. I feel like he changed his mind 2 times on the way up. So I think entrepreneurs work the same way. And you really are all over the place, but it just gives you more tools to learn how to deal with life and everything that comes with it. I'll let Aryeh talk a little bit.
It's completely true. Like the journey that we take really helps us understand what we're doing as entrepreneurs. Specifically, if you come from if you have different experiences, you usually end up in a completely different place than where you think you're going to start. So after my injury, before my injury, I was in sports, karate, kung fu, martial arts, and I busted my foot in the Army. So I had the issue of doing everything everybody else that's 19-year-old was doing, which like running out with pretty much any sports activity. But and that led me to become to study marine biology, which had nothing to do with anything that I wanted to do other than Seinfeld. One episode of Seinfeld.
The golf ball in the whale's blowhole. I love that episode.
Yes, and that it's the smallest thing that puts you on a trajectory to different things. You never think about it until kind of like when you look back and you figure it out. And that's kind of too why we're so much into what we do and want to help people with disabilities, is because of both of our journeys. Yeah.
No, I love that. Yeah, the Flash logo is a great analogy. I mean, what in the moment looks like maybe a retreat or a step back. When you zoom out and we look at it holistically, it's just another step in the journey getting to where you want to go. So that's some great imagery there. Love it. Well, and lastly, I got Daniel Ziv with me, and Daniel's been mentoring founders with the Newchip Accelerator for almost a year now. He has been involved with a number of programs before that. He's a multiple-time founder, board member, an investor right now. He's focusing on high-tech companies, primarily in Israel, but I'm sure outside of that region as well. And Daniel, thanks so much for joining us. Excited to have you here.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thank you. Just a quick introduction. I actually grew up in tech in the IDF as a tech graduate from Amram. Throughout the last 10 years, I've been in a constant transition towards the business side, doing different product management and business development roles. I launched 2 startups. I crashed both of them, so it's an amazing experience by itself. In the last 2 or plus years, I've been mostly working with startups as an advisor, mentor, helping them raising funds, and most recently joined Mizma Ventures, an Israeli-based venture fund. And I have the pleasure to actually help entrepreneurs from the other side of the field. So I'm super excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
No, of course. We'd love to bring you in. And you've been doing some really great stuff with some of our Newchip companies as well. So Always excited to see what opportunities stem from that. Well, thanks for introducing yourselves, everyone. And I know our guests here are thrilled to learn a little bit more about you. I'm going to pose one question kind of to the group, and maybe I'll let Assaf, you kind of answer this one first. But this is just some quick background. According to several reports, Tel Aviv in 2019 and in 2020 actually had the highest number of startups per capita in the world after Silicon Valley. And this is it's also home to development and innovation centers for over 100 multinationals. This startup ecosystem throughout Israel has really ascended, especially in verticals such as AI, big data analysis, analytics, cybersecurity, medtech, and such. There's got to be more to it than just a supreme Israeli work ethic, right? What else would you attribute, either culturally, economically, politically, to the advancement of Israeli entrepreneurism?
All right. So
I know that was a lot.
Okay. So I'll try to do it like short and to the point. First of all, historically, the Israeli tech scene or the Israeli startup tech scene started to grow in the mid-90s, and it was alive and kicking up until 2008. Silicon Valley knew all about it, but it wasn't the known brand that it is today. In a way, a big part of what put it on the map for all of us who are not from Silicon Valley is a book called Startup Nation, which came out back at the time. And it took that thing that Silicon Valley knew all about and really brought it to the rest of the world. So for anyone who's interested, the book itself and what it did to Israeli tech is a case study for itself about marketing.
Yeah,
never mind that. And probably, Miri and Aryeh and Daniel, like I know why you're smiling, because nobody expected that. But I will say this. The important thing is not Israel's story as startup nation, but the universal lessons from our story. I think this is really the important part. And we use the word ecosystem a lot. And you mentioned marine biologists. So ecosystem is a word from biology. In the world of business, actually, the term that is used historically is called clusters of excellence. It's actually an academic term. And, people like, I think it was Paul Krugman and Michael Porter, a lot of people studied these things before, all of these things came into our lives and technology and startups. So I want to give a context to this because this is really important also for founders and entrepreneurs. Think of Hollywood, okay? What is Hollywood? It's a geographically condensed place that, attracts, like a black hole. It attracts talents, the producers, the studios, that girl from, Idaho that wanted to become an actor. She has to go and take Route 66 to California. You have to be there physically. So it's an ecosystem. What is Wall Street? It's an ecosystem. Silicon Valley is an ecosystem. In a way, you have mini ecosystems like Austin, Texas. I mean, you don't have to compete with Silicon Valley in being bigger, better, faster tech. You can take a niche. Israel is an ecosystem for startups and entrepreneurship. We're not big tech ecosystem. We're good with small, like startups, like a small country, like, relatively young country. There's a lot of in there in terms of the DNA of the place. And what the book coined about Israel, when the book tried to figure out like the Israeli secret, it said, it's really all about creative energy. And the book explains how it comes from a lot of sources, culturally, historically, and whatever. But really, I think like the universal lesson is, and this is a lesson in marketing and strategy, you have to figure out, first of all, who you are and what can you really be the best at. And then you have to build your DNA and personality around that and bring that as value to the market. This is really, really important because I met a ton of people in the past decade who want, to learn the lesson from Israel and bring it to their own countries. And the lesson is don't copycat, be the best you. Don't try to be better than me in being me. Be the best you in a way that I could never be. And different places have different cultures. Different cities have different vibes and offerings and cultures. And I think it's the same for companies. Different startups, even if it's the same old, at the end of the day, we're taking the same technology and we do it in a slightly different way for another market. You still can be very unique at whatever it is that you do, and you have to communicate that uniqueness and why it matters to the market. And that's how you can really penetrate through, I believe. So that's one thing. I also believe that in today's world of work, even those of us, I'll say a dirty world, in the world of entrepreneurship, employees, I believe that employees, Michelle that works at the bank, she has to think like that too to get promoted at work. So I really think today that understanding of who am I, so it's authentic, what can I be unique in, and what is it in that uniqueness that is valuable to the world? That's how you can really penetrate through. Israel did it by mistake. We didn't have teams of McKinsey with us. It happened almost as a mistake. The lesson is to do it not as a mistake.
Yeah. No, well said. I mean, yeah, it's just it's a community of I think people with brilliant ideas, and there's just they feel very welcome to act on those ideas as well. So I think that's really important. Daniel, I mean, what would you attribute to the rise in entrepreneurism, or not even just the rise, but the relevance of entrepreneurism and startups and throughout Israel?
Yeah. So first of all, Assaf, I have to tell you, you're doing a wonderful job in being the ambassador of Israel. So your goal is well achieved. Well, Greg, in fact, I think that most Israelis will not consider the work ethic to be supreme, but actually very, very simple. The thing is, I think that the secret sauce is embedded in the culture of the Israeli people. I'm not going to tell you about the history of the people and the country, but you need to keep in mind that it's rooted in the community involvement and working together and finding cost-effective solutions, which in the entrepreneurial world, you consider it to be an MVP. And it's been like that since ever. Sometimes those solutions can create quick and dirty small company that will be acquired very fast, and sometimes it's a 1 billion company idea. Now, someone once told me that Israelis are very good with bringing solutions from 0 to 1, but they struggle to scale from 1 to n. This paradigm
That's an understatement, by the way.
Yeah, from 0 to half. But we're doing a really good job in bringing those companies to an MVP mode, to first traction with the world, and then it's a limit in the way that some of the people here in Israel and in Tel Aviv specifically think that they cannot bridge this bar to go from 1 to n. And this is when we start to partner with global companies, with US-based companies. And most recently, I think in the 2 or 3 years, we're seeing this paradigm being shifted, and that things are starting to break the glass ceiling that was put on top of our heads up until now. And me personally, I think that the next challenge is going to come from Asia Pacific, China, India, South Korea, and all those other new places that Israelis are looking up to.
Yeah, no, that's all very insightful as well. I would agree. It's obviously, as I kind of said after Assaf spoke, you're great with the ideas. You're great with bringing innovation, to an MVP stage, and then I think as global entrepreneurism rises and different regions are able to collaborate with each other, this is really when things can start to take that next step. And Miri, Aryeh, any insight? Yeah,
sorry. I think that we in Israel, we kind of take it to heart, the startup nation, and we are very much in that we want to help startups. I mean, the culture here is, tell me your idea, I'll tell you what's bad with it. And to the outside world, it might seem like, these guys are bastards, but what we're actually doing is we're trying to help each other get to the best solution as fast as you can. If you keep saying this, this is great, it's amazing, and you're not doing anything. You have to tell them, look, good idea, but maybe you should and do this, and this, and that. And that way you can actually support and not let the startup with just tread water and do something that they shouldn't be doing. And that's one thing. The other thing is, as in Israel, as somebody that's studied in the U.S., I can say that a lot of companies here are willing to give a hand to little startups to do amazing things. I mean, Bank Hapoalim, which is one of the big banks in Israel, they allowed startups access to their database and their data and kind of all this live data coming in for markets, for startups just to try out their algorithm, try out their ideas and just see what, and they did it for free. Now, as a student, let's say, or somebody with an idea in New York, if I would approach Citibank and say, hey, can I have access to your data? Can I start my algorithm? They're gonna laugh. But in Israel, they opened up a whole thing. Not only that, Bank Hapoalim gives you money to try that out as well. They give you grants.
Yeah, if I can, take this great building you guys have built and keep building. So I think with us, it's, I'll say three things. One is you think you can, or you know you can. Like, you don't ask permission here as much as, people don't ask permission as much as they should. And I think that's a great catalyst for a startup. Second is access. So not only do we have access to each other as startups and to the rest of the ecosystem, the people that help us present better or give us access to corporates and finance and partners and clients for the first time. So we don't only have access to that, and people keep, and it's a closed, tight-knit community, so that access keeps popping up a couple of times a month. But also big corporates come here to learn about innovation, as we're already branded as Startup Nation. So you get access to, like, for example, we were in the US, the head of the VA, me meeting the head of the VA living in New York would probably be a long shot, but me being in Israel, I can be presented by the embassy to come and speak. So having that access for people just coming to you as the funnel, that's a great one. And a third is the bug, because you'll see, so once it's running and once this machine starts churning and a lot of opportunities come up, you'll see people who run programs for the first time coming from corporates. They'll get the bug and they'll start their own startup. You'll see people, and it's not only by starting a startup, it's also the employees. A lot of people here feel ownership about what they do. They feel committed to the work they do within a company, not only a startup, but also big companies. And so that's a great perpetual engine to get to that growth. So those are all great, pluses to keep this ecosystem going.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's a very conducive, to the ecosystem, to startups, to innovation. So very good stuff. And Assaf, I know, you've used the word ambassador a couple of times. Obviously, you have a great deal of passion for Israel and the home country. But in this digital age, physical location is less and less important. Really, in comparison, when you compare it to the problem that you're solving or the demographics that you're targeting with your product. So obviously, everyone here has meaningful ties to Israel. But looking at the bigger picture, what do you think is critical for entrepreneurs to tap into that global ecosystem as a whole?
Okay, so there's one thing that I want to say about the previous question that actually connects also to the answer to this question. In a way, like the big punchline, Israelis use words like tachles and dugri, and it's all about like, let's carve through the BS to the bottom line. So I think the bottom line here is, okay, great. So Israel has that culture. How can we take the good ingredients without the less good ingredients and bring it to any other place? And in a way, I think that a big part of it is a term that I did not invent. It's called Coopetation. So Coopetation is competition with cooperation. And it's the difference between I want to kill my competitor and I want to always be better than my competitor, but I want both me and my competitor to thrive. And that is true for a lot of startups. I mean, you're both in new territory, new water, new technology. You don't want to kill the other startups. You actually want all of you guys to thrive as, the sector, whether that's whatever it is, in the final frontier. You just want to be better than them. So, and this is a really important thing, because I think that universally, it's true for Israel because of 10,000 reasons, and it's all online, and people who are interested can look for it. But this is not a symposium about the origins of Startup Nation Israel. I think it's also true to California in 1850, when you have cowboys who came to, a town in the middle of nowhere. I think it's true for, producers on Hollywood who are there because of the passion for creation and entertainment and arts. I think it's true for those guys on Wall Street. Maybe we can debate about the culture that was created there in the 80s, but they have a passion for what, whether that's the financial art of it or, they have a passion for it. They have the grit. So it's all about, you have to find the people who are like you and build a community with them. It's fine that you compete with them, but you're still building something together. This is a really, really important point. And in a way, it's related to this question as well. Israel is a super small country, which means it has to be global from day one. There aren't many startups who want to make it in Israel. They need to make it in America, in a way. And the world is flat today. So I actually believe that because the world is flat, geography matters more. It's about whether it's the city you're operating from or the industry niche you're operating in globally. That's where you foster those co-opetitions, whether that's us Austinites in Austin or us in the, AR, VR, which is still, not there yet, but we're on the final frontier. So we need to make this happen for all of us, whatever it is. Now, own rabbi, I would say, online called Simon Sinek, which I'm pretty sure some folks know, either it's through the accelerator and the content and the programming or from external sources. And he taught us always to start with why. The real answer to my question, I think, is if I need to play on Simon Sinek's start with why, for every founder and every startup, it's not just that. You need to define yourself, but who do you want to serve and why?
Yep.
Never mind what exactly do you do and how. You don't get to decide what you do and how. The market will decide what you do and how. If you define yourself by who are you here for and why is it them that you want to serve, you will actually allow for the market to tell you what is the right what and how, and you will be able to adapt to that what and how without changing your skin. So, this is really important for the foundation of not just the storytelling, but the startup strategy and the core basics. And I believe this is really, really the answer, because if you know who are you here for and why, you will know where to find them. It could be in a specific geography. It could be online in a specific community. It could mean for you that you need to go to an accelerator like Newchip or another one, because that's the right one for you. You're not the right startup for Newchip. It will help you get to the right places faster and avoid wasting time in the wrong places.
Coopetation. I love that one. Yeah. That's very valid and it's relevant right now. We're going to have, throughout this week, 80 to 100 companies pitching right now. And they're all in it together. They need to understand they're all in it together while they're competing. The rise of young companies is, benefits one another. It benefits the ecosystem as a whole. So I think
I always use the analogy of poker and the cowboy town. If you walk into the saloon, think like a 1970s Western. If you walk into the saloon, and I'm sure Miri and Daniel and the Aryeh could maybe share and testify. If you walk into an industry, a community, the saloon in the cowboy town, and you don't want to talk to anyone because you know where the gold is at, and you're just playing poker, you're going to end up very lonely. At the end of the day, you need to blend in at the cowboy town or the community or with other startups. VCs, they do a lot of co-opetition. It's really important.
Yeah. No, I would agree. You even made the analogy with Hollywood and with Wall Street. Film is not going to take off if there aren't other filmmakers doing the same thing. Hedge funds are kind of collectively, fighting back against the retail investors right now. They're in the same boat. They're competing, but they're also in the same boat. So it's kind of funny analogies that you've made all around. Shift focus a little bit, and you kind of talked about it earlier, the fact that maybe a book brought relevance to the world, but Tel Aviv has been doing its thing for years and years. And Daniel, I know that you're very immersed in working with young companies throughout Israel. What have you noticed in the last 5 to 10 years that has been a key difference since the time before that has really brought this type of prominence to Tel Aviv and to Israel throughout?
Yeah, so like Assaf said before, and Miri and Aryeh as well, Israel is very, very small country. So it's all about sharing the information and the experience. That's the true unfair advantage for Tel Aviv. That we're basically quick learners. So the IDF fosters and cultivates the mindset for the future workforce in Tel Aviv and in Israel. And all the big shots, they are concluding their own journey and they are collecting insights, and then they come back and they teach those young boys and girls on how to actually start your new venture, actually start your new company. And people, they are never afraid of failure. So they always talk about it. They share ideas. They share thoughts. And in Israel, I think it's a very Israeli thing. Failure is a catalyst for building your next venture, and not for getting a tap on the head and then going back to being this dirty word calls employee. So it's only a catalyst for moving forward. All of that together, and I think it's very it's emerging in the last 5 or 10 years, because we got the mindset for those sharing experiences and collective knowledge, and it builds up Israel and Tel Aviv specifically very much in terms of both commercially and mentally.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad that you actually brought that up, and I'll pass this over to Miri and to Aryeh, because I know that you're working with a lot of former veterans and people who have served, and so yeah, Daniel just brought up the IDF component, and many people in Israel, if not all, have contributed to the IDF and have been a part of that. And I'm curious, how does that bleed into the just the grit that entrepreneurs have, and the mindset that they have, and the fact that failure is not a step back, failure is a step forward. Kind of piggyback on that a little bit.
So first, it's great listening to you guys. I haven't been in this conversation for a while because of social distancing, so this is really fun to start. Following from there, I want to give a shout out. The entrepreneurial ecosystem is a lot in Tel Aviv, but it's also in Jerusalem. We're part of Master Jerusalem. It's a lot of like 10 of the big 10 companies in the world are in Israel, have headquarters here, but they're also in Caesarea, in Haifa, down south. So part of this competition is also within the ecosystem to like grow another one and another one, stronger and stronger. So it's kind of like being in college and having a study group with people you want to do better than. But it's very cool. And so the way the Army methodology comes in, it's fail fast and fail often, and that really comes into fruition in the startup world. And people know it's okay to fail as long as you take something from it. As you don't fool me once kind of thing. Like you don't do the same mistake twice. You keep it down. You put it into your next contract, into your next engagement. You take it into your company culture. To change that and not do it again. So it's wonderful to fail as long as you do it quickly and reiterate and bounce back. And that's taught in the Army, but also outside. And the things that are different in the Army is that you come from a very structured, rule-based place that you're taught to think as a unit, right? You're taught to think as one of many, to pull yourself up, which I think this kind of bleeds into the way people interact with companies here. But it really, it creates more than that. It creates pride in your environment, in yourself, in a lot of other things. And knowing that you can change something socially, I think comes from that kind of pride of ownership of your environment and culture. And so that bleeds into it that way. And it also bleeds into the team. I mentioned this a little bit. In a company, people feel ownership. So if I've spoken to people, this is not characteristic of the entire US, but I've spoken to people that just got a job, and what they're thinking about is 6 months down the line, what their next job is going to be, what the better pay is going to be, how they're going to start sourcing it and moving on and advancing. And in Israel, that exists, of course, but it also, as I said, people take ownership on what they're doing. It's kind of like a joke. If you sit next to someone for a day, by the end of the day, you'll know them, their family member, the names of their family members, where they live, and how you can do your job better than the person sitting next to you. So that really bleeds into the ecosystem. Now, more relevant to us, I think being in the US and seeing the culture, impact was kind of like, to be an impact-based company, you need to be a nonprofit, you need to get charity in order to move. And when we moved to Israel, knowing this, before we moved to Israel, you moved back, yeah. We were there for 7 years in the States. So when we moved back, they really pushed the fact that an impact business can be a business. So you don't have to measure only impact, you measure impact and income, or impact and financial stability in history and looking forward. You have more things, more KPIs to look at. And coming from this mindset, we really knew that we could impact more than the people's lives, the 3 to 24 hour aid that people get when they now have a disability. We could give them back independence and measure that through seeing how many hours out of those 3 to 24 hours they actually get help, and how many of those hours do they order food by themselves online, or are now in the COVID time employed at home. And so we could really have those KPIs, and that really originated in some way with us having a history actually serving in the Army, our families being both in the US and Israeli Army. So we feel kind of ownership and responsibility to better the situation of soldiers, and that's where we started.
I wanted to say as well, a lot of things that for Israel, because most of us serve, it happens with any military, I think, is there's two things that happen. Is one of them is when you're given something like a defect in a gun, or if you're told that your gun is shining a bit too much, you don't go and get a new gun. You have to fix it. You take electric tape and you cover it, and you put in the time in that, and you have to think of new ways. If you have a problem holding something with your kit, you're not getting a new kit. You're not getting the top. You have to fix it by yourself. Any army that you go around the world, that's the mentality, and that is that cultivates ingenuity. Cultivates like, there's an issue. I'm not going to go and buy something else. I'm going to fix it, figure out how to make it better. Fits for me. If it's good for me, there's other people around the world that's probably going to say, hey, that would be good. That's a solution that would work for me as well. And the other thing is that the military takes you out of your comfort zone. Not only, because you're in the, but you get into, you become the best friend, and you become family with people that you would never, ever would consider your family, or you would probably be in contact with if you were just living in your tiny city, just minding your own business. I mean, the units everywhere around the world, all the militaries, they're from different aspects of life. People are coming from different places around the world. It's such a melting pot that you're learning so much about other cultures, about other issues, you're learning so much at such a short time, and it becomes your issue as well, because you're so close to the guy that's sleeping next to you in the tent. You are brothers, you are sisters, your family, and their problems are your problems now, so you have to solve it for them. And that's all any military anywhere. I mean, they cultivate ingenuity.
And if I may, first of all, I totally agree with what you guys said. I just want to add a little bit to that, again, because it's not just the Israeli army. And by the way, the Israeli army may not be what you think it is in terms of how organized it is behind the scenes. And I know exactly why the three of you are smiling. Because there's the front stage and there's the behind the scene, just like every company. But the other thing is this: the experience you get in any army and in every hospital, or even if you serve in the fire department, is practical, is pragmatic. You know the saying that the difference between theory and practice is that in theory and practice are the same, but in practice, not. And this practical thinking is super valuable. And you have so many people in the US, for example, who come back from service and no one knows how to read their CV. No one knows how to evaluate. It's not their army skills. It's their ability to tackle unexpected changes, to adapt fast, and basically do lean startup.
Yeah,
that's what it is. So there's so much to take from what we didn't plan to have it as an advantage, but turns out it's an advantage. I mean, here's a wild idea. I mean, you send people to 1 year of service in schools, hospitals, the fire department, the police department. It's not about helping the community. That's fine. That's, super important by itself. The practical experience that you get by seeing how human-based organizations operate. It's so important because when you're trying to grow a company from scratch, it helps a lot.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly with all of that. And going back to Aryeh, actually, what you had said, it's the fix-it mentality. I think that Israelis have is something that, admittedly, some Americans don't have. We haven't had, we haven't served in the military sometimes, and I think there's an independence that's built, and the ability to get out of your comfort zone as well. That I think is a direct result of some of the success that entrepreneurs see, and just the openness they have to take those risks as well. So that was really cool and really well said. And actually, Mary and Aryeh, I want to stick with you guys for just a little bit and take this more focus back to the startup realm and just to building companies. Obviously, I can't wait to see the doors that are going to open for you guys following the time in the program here with Newchip and the accelerator here. But even prior to getting accepted with our program, you had mentioned you're involved with Mass Challenge in Jerusalem and other programs as well. And you've had success fundraising through some non-traditional avenues. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you've been able to land investors that might be a little unorthodox? I know that you're still in an earlier round, but you've secured an investor that typically focuses on B, C, and D rounds. You've landed an Icelandic VC for the first investment that they've made out of their country. And then of course, you've received some non-dilutive funding as well. So I'm curious how have you been able to have success in different regions, and how does that tie back to some of the connections that you have in Israel as well?
Well, I have to say there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to non-dilutive funding that are available around the world, but in Israel, everybody talks about them. Like one of the things that we talked about, the competition, that it's not really competition. We're all the startups are fighting over the same money that the Innovation Authority, let's say, has, or Horizon 2020, the European Union that we are, as Israel, eligible for. And even though we're all fighting for the same, for the same chunk of the pie, we are helping each other. I will read someone else's grant proposal and say, oh, well, that's terrible. Fix that. Even though I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot here, because it's really we're the moment one of us gets, let's say, the European Union grant, we're all happy. It's we're all celebrating the fact that somebody in Israel managed to get the money. So it's one of the things, and that kind of that helps as well when you come to any VC, any investor. We've already had talks with investors in the U.S. prior to when we had the Innovation Authority grant that told us, well, you're from Israel, even though we were in the States. He said, well, if you're going to be a startup in Israel, get the Innovation Authority to give you a grant. The moment they give you a grant, that's a check mark for us that we should invest in you. And that's kind of a big thing as well. People see these kind of grants as a global approval.
Yeah, and then the way we look at it, without the business background, I guess, is the business approach. Where, so as far as the grants, we partnered, we secured a partner in the hospital before the contract, like just the head of the department, from the head of the hospital to the head of the department, and once they come with you to review a grant, and the grant review is at the hospital, it's much more of their word, right? It gives you a better chance of acquiring the grant. Same with the investor. I love international competitions. It's great to be outside of Israel and grow your network, grow what's going on, understand who's doing what and where. And learning things that aren't directly in your ecosystem right now may be relevant later on, or may help someone else that you know. So we end up using that. So I went to an international competition with 72 countries in Denmark, ended up pitching in front of a bunch of judges, which I'm still in contact with. One of them ended up being on a board of a fund in Iceland, together with the former CEO of MakerBot, and we were the first investment outside of Iceland. So that's how we got the Icelandic VC. Same with other funds. So we tend to get recommendations from people that they've invested in, that they know. And it's something that I heard from other startups that they were doing. I think it was Monday, saying create a back channel. This is all open, right? They already viewed and they said it already, but it's open and back channel. Have someone kind of validate what you're saying as you're saying it, and have someone that can check and support you and every don't be afraid to ask questions and get the conversation going. Maybe an investor that's not relevant for you today will be relevant for you in the future. So as long as you keep that contact going and updates and see what's going on with other people who may have transferred to a new fund by the time that you talk to them. Then I mean that was a great tip I got early on, and I guess it's more in the character. Like some entrepreneurs are, this is my bunker, I'm secretive, no one will know my idea, and it'll come out, and then on the other side, you can be very social and use that to your advantage. So each of their own strength to, echo Assaf a little bit, use your good muscle and make it stronger. And never be afraid to look, outside, talk to people, understand, what they've applied to, what worked, what hasn't worked. In the end, someone else's mistake is going to save you time, and someone else's advice is going to get you 2 steps forward. So we're really putting that mentality into our company.
And again, it comes back to the getting out of your comfort zone, because we're not only applying to competitions and events and in Israel. We're going everywhere around. Anyone that will have us, we're there. Kind of is all news is good news.
Relevant, of course. Newchip was a great supporter in that. Like we saw the VA connections, and of course the history. We spoke to companies that went through the program, and that's what really closed the decision to go. So.
Well, much of what you said is actually very in line with what we would preach as well. You never know exactly what connection is going to be relevant and fruitful down the road. You never know who is going to change affiliations and be able to help you out at a different stage. And so I think that you both of you are very assertive, and you're very open to exploring opportunities outside of Israel, of course, within Israel as well. And I think that's going to benefit you greatly. And then, speaking about being focused in Israel specifically, I mean, you're working under the Tel Aviv municipality right now. And so you understand the value that, the country of Israel offers to its entrepreneurs if you seek it out. But then, of course, globally is very important as well. So that was really, really well said. Daniel, from an investor perspective, what are some of the best ways that founders can leverage their home networks when fundraising? And, conversely to that, how can Israeli-based companies, kind of piggybacking on what Aryeh and Miri just said, how can Israeli companies get traction trying to raise capital in other markets as well, like the United States?
Yeah, so it all comes down again to the fact that it's a very, very niche place and a very, very small place. So basically for an entrepreneur to raise funds, both in Israel and in the US, you have to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to go out, talk to people, get their feedback about your product and about your company. And like Aryeh just said before, talk to as many people as you can. Try to be out and about. Never decline an invitation for nothing. And always try to share your needs to anyone you meet. Don't be afraid to say that you're fundraising right now. I think one of the things that is a very Israeli thing, but across the board and around the world, people are starting to get to know it. Is that you have to reach out, find the links, find those degrees of separation, and start exposing the opportunities. So first of all, I would like to take this stage to say to any Israeli-based founder that's listening that we are constantly looking for cyber startups, fintech startups, automotive AI, cloud DevOps. Don't be afraid, reach out to me. I'm very approachable. You can reach out via LinkedIn, website, email, or even my phone number is probably out there
Yeah, no, and yeah, they, the 6 Degrees team was just talking about this as well. Some founders really want to stay stealth about their idea, stay in a little bunker, but sometimes and oftentimes that's not going to, you're not going to stumble into opportunities that you weren't planning on. And I think those are some of the best opportunities. So you need to put yourself out there. You need to be approaching other people, talking about your idea, and just creating that network and continue to build it. That's awesome. So yeah, probably one more question for each of you, and I'll start Assaf here with you. This is really where you excel. You're a natural communicator, a natural encourager, which makes you great at what you do. But what advice would you give to those of us who may have a more difficult time self-motivating or networking or putting ourselves out there? And this is apart from just not being an entrepreneur, because I know that those are many of the qualities that contribute to being successful entrepreneurs. But yeah, what kind of advice would you give to those of us who might struggle in those areas?
That's a very good question. And just so you know, I was a super shy person. The reason I got to where I am today, and I don't consider myself that good, I just have a lot of field hours maybe, is because I threw myself to those opportunities. Back in that day, I said, if I want to be an ambassador, I need to know how to speak in front of an audience. I did not. I wanted to shit my pants before my first time. And so that's part of the fail fast mentality. Burn your mistakes when they're cheap. That's number one. The second one is very important as well. I don't think every entrepreneur and every founder should be like, I don't know, Guy Kawasaki or Gary Vee or Simon Sinek on stage or some sort of a, something like that. No, you have to be yourself, but you have to bring that self out there. Meaning the truth has to be heard, not just made behind the curtain. So again, it's the same cowboy town. When you walk into the saloon, you have to talk to the other cowboys to get to know them. You can be the shy person. There's a way to use your shyness to work for you. But if you're not engaging, it will not happen. So it actually brings me back to my point in a way. And again, I'm a storyteller. So in the context of this panel, I do a lot of storytelling, which sometimes go more for the strategy part than the actual, the text for the website part. I will say this, if you actually buy into this, start with who and why, and let the market tell you the what and the how, something very interesting happens. You realize that the startup and your solution, they don't really matter. They are a mean to an end. And the question is, what is that end? Sadly, many entrepreneurs that I meet, the real reason they started their company is because they hated their former boss. It's a really bad, if you really deep down and you get to know, try to reverse engineer and find the motivations, a lot of times the motivation is, I hated my former job, so I had an idea, so I decided to make, no, push factors are not good in this world. You need pull factors. And a known Israeli guy called Uri Levin, who's one of the founders of Waze, he is very known for promoting the phrase, fall in love with the problem, not your solution. Your solution may suck, it may change. The problem is where your commitment is at. So when you go out there and you speak to investors, I know that on stage, speaking to the entrepreneurs out there, I know that on stage you need to talk about the market, your solution, the technology, the business model, the team, the traction, and it should be wow, great. But when you're in a meeting with someone, don't do this with them and talk, don't pitch them. Tell them, listen, this is my storytelling. This is my story. This is why I fell in love with this problem from an emotional perspective. So I embarked on a journey, and without knowing it, a company was born. So we did this and we did that, and currently we're here, and here's our deliberation. Moving forward, we're deliberating. Should we do X or Y? What do you think? I think this is a much better pitch in 90 seconds with a one-on-one meeting with someone like Daniel, then, hi, we're blah, 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 blah startup. Let me tell you about the market, the solution, our technology, the team, and why you need to invest in us right now. So it actually, I from what I see, it works more when you're just yourself. Don't try to sell. Try to just tell your story and ask for advice.
Yeah, I mean, that goes even, that's just a life lesson, I would feel like. So yeah, and we are actually, unfortunately, I could talk all day with everyone here. Coming up on time, I'd love to get an opportunity just to close it out a little bit. Miri, Aryeh, if you want to just offer some advice that you have to other entrepreneurs that might be in a similar place as you, and just give us some closing thoughts from 6 Degrees.
Yeah, I think in terms of stage, we're at the stage where we're happy to ask questions to the other side.
Yeah.
And we would encourage other people, other companies or other people going through the fundraising stage to not just do a little bit about what Assaf was talking about, not just go one-sided, but be open to asking questions and receiving some input, because that gets you way further along. And in terms of us, we'd love to talk to anyone out there who's listening, who's relevant to the field, whether you be a veteran or an investor in the field or anyone in the rehabilitation stage or a company that wants to partner up. We would love to talk to you. And of course, these lovely panelists that are with us. And in terms of closing words, I don't know. I hope to do this again. I don't know if you have anything.
I want to say, I'm sure that Daniel will agree, and Assaf as well, because it connects to what they're saying. When you go and talk with a VC, learn the VC's story. Figure out not only what they're interested in, but other companies they invested in. Try to figure out why, and try to see how you fit into that story, because that is the best thing that you can do. If you tell an investor, you invested in this and this, and we see this as something that could have helped them, or we see us as something that could help you as well. Put yourself into their story, interject your narrative into their narrative, and that way you start that relationship, and that is the best thing that you can do, because even if they don't invest in you, they're invested in you and they'll want to help you.
Yeah, not in a stalkery way. I've heard investors say, I've been approached on Facebook or whatever. They don't stalk anybody. That's not where it's not like a one fits all. You can get some of this information online that people put out and are willing to give you, and some of it just ask. That's how conversations start, and in the end, you're not getting somebody's money, and that's it. You're getting a relationship, and so you want to be in that relationship. So yeah, not to sound too girly or anything.
No, not at all. That was very, very well said. I'm sure Daniel would agree from the VC side of things.
Yeah, Greg, before we close it off, I want to emphasize just one thing. In Israel, there is a catchphrase to lead by example and not by teaching. So following this lovely panel and approaching those lovely panelists, I want to mention to everyone who listen in, see how much collaborative we were and building up to each other, referencing one to another, and to the speeches that each and every one of us gave, and that's really the Israeli mentality. And I had a lot of fun. So thank you.
Oh, I had a blast as well, and yeah, we got another demo week coming up in May. Maybe I'll do a second rendition of this if you guys would have it. But this was awesome. Really great stuff. So I really do appreciate everybody's time, and we're going to make sure that we get your contact information out to those who want it, and just continue to build the ecosystem, continue to stay open to meeting new people as well. So. That's
and last but not least, Greg, I think I'll speak from all of us. We want to thank you for organizing this.
Oh, good man.
Everybody for watching.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, definitely. Thank you all around.
The whole two of you out there.
2,000, hopefully. Well, thanks so much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of demo week. We will, look to do this again very soon. I appreciate everyone's time. So take care.